shut it down
Where does it take place now?
at
Pritchard Park?
Pritchard Park on Friday night.
I'm gonna put this
Wasn't
down.
there a while where they got moved out of there or something?
Well, I hope not. I think they were there last week.
No, it would have been maybe last year or something.
Yeah, every
I
now
would've
and
gotten
well, see, there's
confused.
been controversy sometimes, and if someone else comes along and books the park or something for that night, they might get bumped.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that when that happens, I think they move them up to the monument. But since
Well,
people,
the monument is where they used to.
well, since people started protesting at the monument, then they decided to have construction there, so it was inappropriate for people to hang out in the construction zone, and it was far too good a place to hold up signs and protest. So I don't know where they go.
I even heard West Asheville at some point last year. I don't remember. I was trying to find out.
Well, they seem to
Some huge-
Pritchard Park and the little sort of amphitheater arrangement there works very well for them, and I hope they continue to do that. And I wish that they would extend the hours. And they used to go way back. They used to go much later into the night. And then there was a city crackdown, and the police started coming in and saying, "Is it 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock?"
Yeah, it's so ridiculous.
At a certain, I mean, they have to stop, and everybody has to leave at this particular time. And I always hated that.
Well,
But
that's what
That's
they were
kind of like
doing.
a curfew.
They did a curfew at,
That's what it seems like, huh?
Vance
well, I guess
Memorial.
if you're, under a police state, you should have a curfew,
Oh,
shouldn't you?
that's true. That's what the police would say. Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking too. You were talking about having so many new police in town and stuff, and I was thinking, well, if you want a police state, you got to get a lot of police.
That's true. Yeah.
So, but what I was trying to get, I was trying to get somewhere before I just mentioned that the drum circle. Can you remember what subject we were on? Like
Before the drum circle?
Might have been the new vista spills down into the river.
were we discussing that?
I'm
No,
not
no.
sure.
No, I don't recall discussing that. No.
Strike that.
Anarchy, chaos.
Well,
I think you're talking about releases, right?
Yeah.
yes,
we were-
releases, exactly,
That's right.
releases. So I was at the drum circle, and this woman, but I've had this happen to me before. But one example, I have my camera on a tripod and everything, and I'm videoing the drum circle, and this woman comes over here and she goes, "You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't take pictures of me. You can't take pictures of You have to have permission. You do not have my permission to take my picture." And she's all on me, Well, see, I happen to know she is wrong because she is in public.
Right.
If a person is is walking down a public street or is in a public park, hey, and you take a picture of them, you don't have to get a release to use their image or
It's a paparazzi or
yeah.
Right, and when we
Yeah.
started talking about this had to do with, me saying at the beginning of URTV, this was something that was a large issue for us.
Right.
And we ended up going through a lot of grief in relationship to
Right.
it.
Well, now we have Pat here, who is our director, and Pat has had a whole lot of experience and she's been in a bunch of public access stations before. See what I mean? And what is so good. What is so good is that she knows these things already. And so she's been a real asset to solving those kind of problems because
Right.
she knows what the answer is
Right.
already. And she's already fought. I think the two largest First Amendment cases concerning public access. She wound up involved in them, so she knows. Well, let me step out for just a second
Okay.
and
T.
yeah, you need to. Okay, it's right there. Okay. Oh,
yeah.
this hasn't. Let's see. Yes, that gets poured in that pot right there. And
Yeah,
that,
the
yeah.
thing starts to spit savagely when it gets boiling.
It's a spatter.
Yeah, and it's like it scares me. Well, the other day when he was pouring,
power.
it was just blah, blah.
No, it's power. I mean, this is,
Yeah.
Okay.
hot and steam.
I feel
Probably
like the lid
depends
back
on
on
the
that.
tea, maybe.
No, the tea kettle itself, the thing, when it gets boiling, it just starts coming out like a geyser, and
So let's see.
Yeah, you know that thing you're talking, or that John was talking about with the resistance to. I was in that Asheville Day in Asheville thing, digital pictures,
Yeah.
and the year before I did fine and I did the whole thing. This time I just really couldn't get into it, but I did take one try. It was out of the park, North Charlotte. Lots of things going on, and this one guy came walking along with the dog, and he was serious. He said, "Don't take my picture. Don't take my." I said, "No, I'm not gonna take your picture. I don't want to take it." It lasted a long time. And I realized how, because I was close, and there weren't that many people. Or so.
With what John was saying, the thing I was wondering was if he had taken that footage and then used that.
I would.
I mean, because it sounded like it would have been really interesting. You know, I mean, that power and passion.
If the woman was screaming at me about not taking your picture, I would have had the cameras
Yeah,
rolling.
yeah. I mean, you have to.
Yeah.
And then, but then the thing becomes, do you use that? Is that what you're going to use? I mean, obviously she doesn't want you to, and
Right.
you know, well, what are you going to do then?
Yeah. Well, you know,
I'd skip it myself.
Mhm.
See, I mean, barring some kind of
Right.
unusual. or
Right,
maybe
just out of
good
respect,
reasons.
maybe. But
Yeah.
then it becomes so tempting because it's such a sensation. I mean,
Well,
you know.
especially if she's really flipping out, right?
Yeah, right. I
Yeah.
know.
Maybe somebody else.
well, there's some folks, have some kind of spiritual belief that, you're stealing a bit of their soul.
I
or
know.
whatever.
Well, and that's a legitimate, question
it's
for somebody.
It's legitimate as any other
Yeah, right. It's a position. So,
thing, like, I believe in the Easter Bunny.
yeah. Well, and
The
that's
Easter Bunny is going to
yes.
take me to heaven and give me eggs.
Well,
Something, yeah.
I can
Yeah,
sort of,
but-
I can sort of see.
but, yeah,
if a
I've-
group of people don't want someone to take the picture. You say.
Yeah, I've actually
But it's-
lived in public for over 15 years, almost 16, and
Hmm.
I'm getting my image taken all the time. And usually I just say, for $5 I take my clothes off, 10 I leave them on, and sometimes it gets nervous laughter, sometimes it gets real laughter, and sometimes it just gets obscene looks. And like, oh my God.
Yeah, but nobody's really selling your image. It's not on
No.
a billboard. You're
No,
not on a
yeah.
proper tone logo.
Right? Yeah, I would think Calvin Klein would want me maybe
You never know.
in my undies.
We were
He
in
probably will.
we were in New York, and it's like there was a guy that was selling his image in that way. I mean, he was stripping down, and he would charge people for it,
Right.
and it was like that was his way of making
That was
money.
a performance
Well,
art, right?
Yeah.
That's my whole gig is performance art.
I know, I can tell.
I declared myself to be an act of art, that my existence is my performance. So 24/7, for 16 years I've been living as this act of art.
Yeah.
It gets pretty crazy sometimes. It's certainly not as wild as the Grateful Dead tour, I suppose. But,
Well, and it's not necessarily something that the society nationally they don't. You don't get any strokes for that.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
there's no.
that's for sure.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
frame that goes. Yeah, that's great.
yeah, I've been on the TV a few times, I guess, though I've never actually seen myself on the TV, but I've had some stories written about some of the sculptures I have built and stuff, the installation things, and I was just looking at one today from, it was a picture of this thing I built in Minneapolis on the river, trying to take the river back from the city of Minneapolis. They decided that it was a municipal park and that you couldn't be there after 10 o'clock, and you couldn't even possess beer, much less consume it, because they'd actually arrested and taken me to jail for possessing beer the night before Easter a few years back. And so I spent about 2 years building these 2 different large sculptures out of driftwood, et cetera, on the riverbank, and sent all these letters to the authorities saying, this is a federal waterway, the easement is sacrosanct, it's also a national park, the city of Minneapolis cannot annex this, blah, blah, blah. And they destroyed the first one that I built, and so I went back and built the second one in the same location, and, did the first one, I think, about 9 weeks. I was just manic after I got out of jail for possessing beer. I think it was like 45 at the time, and a veteran besides. You think a veteran of the Marine Corps, in his 40s would be able to sit on the Mississippi riverbank, drinking beer. You
20,
think?
20 years earlier,
Yeah,
he would have.
yeah. It's
People would have been doing it, no problem.
yeah, but there's this fascist police state that's brought on by some kind of psycho-Christian puritanical morality or immorality or whatever it is they.
Well, certainly changed
right.
since that time.
Oh,
Well,
we're making
that-
it safe for our children.
Yeah, that
like
idea of
every place
making the
gotta be
world safe for democracy, it's
Right.
like the one world order. I
Yeah,
mean,
the
the
new
whole
world order.
impetus
Yeah.
that took us to the Middle East and has had us involved in
Yeah.
wars there, and
Yeah,
and
same
we're
one.
here too.
Same one that keeps us propping up dictators all over the world. with
Yeah.
Guns for cocaine,
Well,
guns for heroin.
yeah, that's been going on for a really long
Forever.
time, even longer.
For-
So
For as long as, for 200 years.
yeah, as long as the United States has been a nation state,
Yeah,
it's
well,
true.
there's, I was in the Marines, and I say the few, the proud, the gullible. The Marines were looking for a few good men, so was I, because I was pretty queer, and was pretty much coming out. At the end, I was calling everybody, darling and sweetheart instead of sir, and so. Say, are you gay? And I go, was that you last night? Yeah. Oh. And so but. Anyway, I mean, back then, if I would have been caught with my trousers down, as it were, I could have gone to prison for 20 years or something.
Yep.
And so it wasn't no fun. But one of the things they didn't tell us was one of the commandants of the Marine Corps. I can't remember Pershing or I can't remember which one it was, but he was the commandant of the Marine Corps for 20 years or whatever, beginning around 1900 until whenever, something like this. But after he retired, he came out with this statement, and I wish I could remember it all, but he said, in 1904, for example, I invaded Nicaragua for, the Dole pineapple plantation or whoever, the American Fruit
Yeah,
Company or
American Fruit
whoever.
Company. Yeah.
And he said, he went right down the list of all these different countries he had invaded for the benefit of these different corporations.
Yeah.
And, of course, they propped up the petty-ass dictators in
Yeah.
the process. And
Yeah, people that were doing terrible things
horrible
to people
things.
and
in
the earth.
1980, I guess, it was when Reagan took over, and George Bush Sr., of course, had been head of the CIA prior to that, and apparently was buddy-buddy with Noriega down in Panama.
I know.
But apparently the CIA, I read this book called The Great White Lie by a guy that used to be an undercover agent for the DEA, working in Central and South America for, decades, I guess. But everything he was doing to tracking down these drug dealers was thrown aside by the CIA because they were putting those drug dealers in charge of Bolivia. And the head of the security for that government that the CIA put in, who went about killing tens of thousands of so-called leftists later, was none other than, what's his name, the Butcher of Leon, the Nazi war criminal. What's his name? It'll come to me. Anyway, Klaus Barbie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, so they had this guy, this Nazi, this butcher, this horrifying war criminal installed as the head of security of the Bolivian government. And when that happened, all the cocaine started floating into this country, because before 1980 it was something the rich did, actors in Hollywood or whoever, artists and that kind of thing. But after 80s, when Reagan came, it was just cocaine. Now you can't go out and find marijuana on the street, but you can find all the crack you can shake a stick at. It's insanity, pretty much. The whole drug war is insanity. Remember, folks, the war on drugs, the war on you. Right? It's a war on American civil liberties. And
So, where are you going to be again? Before you go off, you're going to be someplace selling your stuff, just so people can come
it's
and.
kind of selling is not really a correct word, I suppose. Accepting contributions,
Yes.
is better. But contributions, whether I give you a trinket or not, is always welcome. Because I make stuff like this. There's probably over 5,000 pieces of my things floating around the world now, and I always tell folks to I'll be worth millions when I'm dead. You can get it cheaper now.
I know, that's
so
true.
There's thousands of people all over the world waiting for me to die so they can buy that new Mercedes or put their kid through college or maybe just get another tank of gas. But so anyway, yeah, I'm heading up to the Republican National Convention. It starts I think 1st or 2nd of September. So from here it'll take nearly 3 weeks, I think, riding bicycle.
Was it Detroit?
No, it's in St. Paul, Minnesota, and
Okay, if we're going to play a new game at the Tea Party today. Okay, and that is, according to we have adults here with good thinking minds and all like that. If anybody deems that someone else at the Tea Party is speaking in a manner that would be inappropriate for daytime TV, as would be judged by the community that we live in, take that thing and hit them in the head. And that'll liven up the Tea Party. What do you think?
I don't know about hitting, just kind of rattling.
Well,
It's a hard thing to judge.
I'd have to be.
I don't have any.
But then if we
context
hit
for it.
somebody in the head, we'd be acting, in ways that wouldn't necessarily fit those standards, right?
oh, I was just trying to liven things
Yeah,
up there.
Smacking somebody in the head with this thing would be more prime time.
Crime Time TV.
Prime time, yeah.
Yeah,
Crime time.
Crime Time TV. That's acceptable. You can bludgeon someone to death with a rock on
And we
TV.
could have,
Bludgeoning is okay. Okay.
Bludgeoning is a nice
Yeah.
word. I love
Yeah.
that word,
Yeah,
bludgeon.
that
Yeah.
is.
That's
Isn't that
okay.
nice, Peace?
That's okay.
It's all came out of Reed Creek, the stream that comes out of the storm sewer from under downtown, goes out towards the university.
You're talking about those tunnels. I never heard that.
Heard what?
About the tunnels underneath the
yeah,
thing.
somebody
I could
says-
see where it might be one that had some, because they do build like that.
Right, yeah.
But I lived in Prescott, Arizona for a while, and it's the same thing.
There's no-
Tunnels under the railroads. I mean, you would meet some really varied folks who would
Yeah.
talk about that. Turned out it was true.
Yeah.
They really
Yeah.
did have them. And years later, they had to build a shopping center or something.
You ready for tea?
I'm ready for tea.
All right.
Yeah.
This is the only one that we got anything in yet.
Okay, and
See,
and
bro,
does it have
yeah.
real sugar, or is it just this chemical goo?
but you also got honey. I mean, tea with honey is,
Yeah, tea with honey is good.
yeah.
Is this real bee spit?
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question.
Bee puke.
Want some? Sure.
Mm. Anyway, yeah, so I'll be riding my bicycle. I'm leaving here Sunday morning
Just
to go back to Nashville, Tennessee, and I'll hang out in Nashville for a few days, try to collect some more funds. And then I'll be riding up to St. Paul, so it should
John, you want some?
be quite a ride.
Do you ride on the big highways?
There's a reason.
No,
that's a
it's
big
illegal
truck.
to ride on the interstate.
Okay, let's go.
But,
There you go, buddy.
Well, that's probably
Oh, that's
okay
good.
law. That's one law.
Yeah, well, it's really nice to have a road that actually has a paved shoulder to ride on. Because a lot of times I'm doing what I call white lining, where you're riding, it's like walking on a tightrope for 20 or 30 miles. Because you're trying to balance on this white line so you don't fall off in front of the logging trucks or fall off the road and into the
Those
ditch.
shoulders where
Oh God, I hate those. I found, on the way here, there was this thing. It was really nice. Like, oh my God, they got a shoulder, and then they had the thing so that I guess if you're sleeping and going off the road, it starts going blah 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 blah. Those are, it's like God, it's like riding down the railroad tracks. It's horrifying. So yeah. Anyway, Saturday afternoon.
Saturday.
2 to 6 o'clock.
That's what it is.
Yeah, Saturday afternoon, 2 to 6. I'm going to be trying to be down by the magnolia tree where Lady Passion and other folks have been sitting now for almost a month trying to guard that tree from the developers, trying to keep it so somebody doesn't sneak in the middle of the night and cut it down. And I noticed from a distance that their signs are still up, so I'm assuming they're still there.
Thank you.
Because I haven't been in town since last Sunday. And, ooh, this looks crunchy.
Thank you.
So would this be appropriate to dip?
Yep,
Sure.
it is.
Good, because I haven't much for chewers anymore. And,
Yeah, it softens it right.
yeah, yeah.
So you're
I
gonna
like
be
a liquid
there.
diet.
You're gonna be there Saturday 2 to 6, and you're gonna be telling stories.
Oh yeah, I'll ramble on. I'll show pictures of my garden that I built here that I've somehow managed to retain, and
How long have you been here?
well, I just came back. Let's see, I think I left Nashville like July 7th,
Wow.
and it took me about 4 days to get here. 'Cause I stopped in Knoxville for almost a full day to repair a bike, and 'cause I broke a bunch of spokes. I carry too much weight. Yeah, I got bags full of rocks and wire
Oh yeah,
and stuff, and
heavy.
heavy stuff. Yeah, I keep telling myself I should go back to writing poetry on bar napkins and
Yeah,
something.
much lighter.
yeah.
But it won't last as long. I mean,
No,
you know, poetry is pretty ephemeral,
right. And,
especially when it's on bar napkins
but,
or when it's just said.
oh yeah, it's the greatest part about performance art is when you can screech and rant and rave and
then it's gone.
go off like a lunatic and it's just gone.
Yeah,
It's the best.
into the
But some of my
cosmos.
things are rather physical, and like the garden I built here, I called it rearranging the furniture. And I'd been invited to come visit Asheville by some friends I'd met at a Beltane gathering off in Tennessee, and at a sanctuary. And they said, "Come to Asheville," and so I did. And while visiting, I found just down the street from there, they had some art studio things down by the river, and just down the road. I found in this little patch of woods between the river road and the river itself, about 100 truckloads of broken up old concrete, and someone suggested that it may have been from the old concrete bridge that the Riverlink Bridge replaced.
You didn't by any chance have that camp that was down there?
The one that they
By the
surrounded with
river.
chain link and barbed wire.
Yeah, that was on the land that the power company, I assume they had, they claimed anyway,
Yeah.
and they ousted you, and it was supposed to be an incredible encampment. This is like, I'm talking about 10 years ago
Yeah,
almost.
I got busted for it in 1998, and a woman wrote a story about it. I was on the cover of the Mountain Express,
Right.
and it was really heartfelt, but not terribly accurate.
And that's what
And
did
3
you
days,
in,
3
isn't it?
days later, I was arrested. Well, I finally let her write the story because it was actually part of like this art walk down there once.
Right.
Yeah, I just kind of like crashed it, and I actually they had these posters that all these artists were supposed to paint or do something to, and then they were auctioning off the posters to raise money for the art walk, whatever. And I guess mine got the most. It sold for like $50 or something. But so I invited people into this thing in the woods, and some people came, including this woman that wanted to write a story about it, and I put her off for months because, I didn't really need that. Actually, I told her every time I get somebody writing me, and up,
Right.
it turns out to be bad.
Yeah.
Because I have to leave town. 'Cause suddenly
Yeah,
I'm
and not that
famous,
she had a bad intention in any
Oh no,
sense
she
of
was
the word.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Some person back then said, "Oh, she stops just short of calling me Christ."
Mm-hmm.
But she did call me the postmodern prophet, urban shaman, and such. And
Go ahead and finish your sentence.
okay,
And when you get a chance, read this. Don't discuss it.
okay.
Just read it so
Okay.
that you know that
I'll
it
break
has
up
gone
my-
far
break
and
up.
wide.
I'll have to break out my glasses.
Humongous ramifications.
Oh gosh. I've probably done worse things for less. Anywho, so yeah, I called that rearranging the furniture, and I spent 11 months living on site over a 3-year period, and probably rearranged somewhere between 200 and 300 tons of waste concrete. And,
Yeah.
And then they wrote the story, and we had a great big opening party that night. The article came out. There was about 100 people there, and a drum circle went on to almost dawn, and we had food and drink and musicians, and it was fabulous. And 3 days later, I was arrested for it, and then they built the chain link and barbed wire fence around about 2 acres of land, so I couldn't rearrange the furniture no more. And here, several years later, the Hurricane Ivan, I guess it was, that flooded the city so badly. And somebody suggested that after the water went down, there was like maybe some barrels floating up out of the goo, because there was like this swampy area between me and the Riverlink Bridge. And then other people said there was goo coming up out of the soil, and I heard rumors that there was as many as 10 tanks up to 20 feet in diameter of toxic waste buried underneath all that waste concrete. And apparently, somebody didn't want that found. Maybe that's why the fence, but
Maybe so.
maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was found, and it was dug up, and I told them way back when that I was trying to heal the land they had desecrated by dumping all the junk on it in the first place, and now it's kind of healed. They still have this chain link surrounding this level dirt field that's slowly becoming covered with weeds, but it's no trees, no waste concrete, no junk, no toxic sludge.
But I mean, so the tanks really were there?
Yeah, apparently.
I mean,
yeah.
that's documented.
Yeah, I guess this woman that owned the 3 little studio complex thing told me that it took them like 3 months of digging and that she could hardly breathe down there because the smell of the stuff was so horrendous. And the Riverlink organization at the time, while I was arrested, said, we're going to own that land sooner or later, and we'd like you to come back and finish the garden. Of course, there's no garden to finish, and I don't think they own the land yet. It's still fenced off. But I have it in my mind to return here sooner or later to build a large mound there in the shape of a salamander and do this mound about 150 yards long and maybe 20 feet high, with surrounding walkways, maze, sculpture gardens, whatever, and maybe surrounded by dikes with alcoves on the inside and big gates so you can,
Sounds nice.
It would be a nice project. Take me 5 years at least, and give me something to do here, and try to do it legally for once, which I don't usually try to do art legally. And, I'd have to retire from the Living Art in America thing, and
No.
And,
No, you wouldn't.
Kind of.
Why?
Because it would require some kind of, permission being granted, which I've never gotten.
Yeah, but I don't think that living art necessarily implies that it has to be, outside of the frame of a collective agreement.
Yeah.
I mean, living art should be able to occur. I mean, it would be nice if living art was able to occur here.
Yeah.
Or anywhere.
Anyway.
It's officially sanctioned and recognized
Yeah.
as a mode of living.
And there are places in the world, I think, where that happens.
Yeah, where
I think that, there's some of the European countries where, they actually support art, and
Norway's
the
one.
government pays them to do stuff, to hang out,
I think
and just
Norway
do.
and Denmark both do that. Support the artists, give them a stipend or whatever it is.
and how do you? I mean, you make things and they say, oh, you're an artist. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a question of schooling. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Or is it?
Thank you so
No,
much.
I just create art, so it makes me an artist. And
Right.
of course, there's
Did
this
you
thing
get to
about.
talk?
Not
No,
yet.
because they're so interesting.
I know, it's really
It's like,
interesting stuff.
I should
isn't
be
it?
I should be at home watching this.
Oh, okay.
You can talk.
I'm starting to think you're staying at the tea party longer than you planned.
Oh, yeah,
already.
I'm definitely, I've already stayed longer.
I
Well,
made
I mean,
you stay longer, but
See, Badger, the thing that he's talking about is something that I came into after your coming out party.
Mhm.
And I missed that, unfortunately, but I found out about it after you'd been arrested, but
Right.
before they put up the chain link fence.
Oh, yeah.
And I went down there, and Al was a part of this. Al was the one who told me about it. And he brought us down there, and was like, we checked out the whole space, and it was fascinating. What
It
you
was
had
good,
going on.
wasn't it?
It was great.
Uh-huh.
And it was what you want for your community.
Right.
You want your community,
To look like
to
that.
be having things like that going on.
Right.
And it's
I
like, why
agree.
did that get shut down? Well, it got shut down, maybe because
Because-
of toxic sludge.
Because somebody was hiding toxic sludge
Right,
under
right.
there, and they couldn't.
And, we were going, well, why would they shut this down? What is the matter? I mean, this land isn't being used for anything.
Well, so
I
many
mean,
things don't make sense like that.
Yeah, well, because you don't have the information, yeah. All right.
Well, they should
Yeah,
put up
there
a
is.
sign. We're hiding toxic sludge under here. Do not build a beautiful garden here.
Yeah.
Well, it would be public space, right? It's a common space.
Yeah, actually, I found out too late that it wasn't really public land. It was.
But I mean, there's
I know, it
less
looked like
and
it's-
less and
it
less
looked like
of
it was
that
public
everywhere.
land.
Think all the towns you can go to, there's
I
no
let things soak
bathrooms,
too long.
there's no benches to sit
Right,
down,
right.
there's no place where you can, loiter.
Oh, hell no.
I mean, it's, the public space is almost gone.
Well, there's places, across the country I've been that we just call walking towns because you can't sit down. If you
Yeah.
sit down, the cops come by. You can't
Right.
stop here. You got to move on.
Yeah, those are the ones with the vagrancy laws, and you have to have $20 in your
Right, there's a
wallet
lot
or
of
something like
vagrancy
that.
laws, and
Yeah, Kansas City was like that.
I got chased out of Charleston, actually taken out of Charleston once by the police, and they put me in the back of the car, took me out of town, said if I come back, they're going to mess me up.
Right.
So it took me like 2 hours to walk back to town. I stayed for another 2.5 days. And then I decided, well, it's time to split, so I walked to Savannah. But, that was pretty crazy because, that was one of those places the cops would roll by and say, you can't stop here, you got to move on. So I called up the mayor's office and said, I'm a free American citizen. I have every right to talk to people on the street. And, a couple of days later, I'm surrounded by 6 or 7 cops who hustled me into the back of the car. And cops saying, if you come back, I'm going to take you and put you in the 72-hour emergency psychiatric unit thing.
Oh.
And I says, oh, you're a psychiatrist? And he says, no, I've had experience with them. And I says, oh, as a patient? But,
And you said that too?
yeah, oh, hell yeah.
But all of that,
I'm in the car already. What can I do? Shoot me.
it's all
Okay,
happened in
maybe.
two
Yeah, maybe.
generations. Our grandfathers wouldn't understand any of this.
Right.
They could sit around the middle of town and whittle if they wanted.
Exactly.
It was accepted part of the landscape.
Right.
Well, but the difference is that, the country wasn't as transient at that point.
Well, the country wasn't a lot of things as
Right.
much as at this
But
point.
people they had places that they felt like they belonged and they owned in some way or other, and it's like people knew them, and that's not as
Right.
true. We live in a transient,
That's
much
part
more
of it.
transient
That's
place.
part of it, but it doesn't necessarily have to lead to what it's led
Doesn't-
to.
doesn't justify
it.
it.
Does change things, and also just sheer numbers.
Right.
Think of the number of faces you see
man,
every
it's
day.
incredible.
Yeah.
It's a changing world.
Not a whole lot of
Hugely.
people talking about 6 or 7 billion people.
Yeah,
Like the Soylent Green movie came out in the 70s, but ever since nobody's really talked about the overpopulation.
Was
anymore.
Soylent Green, was it in the 70s?
I think so, yeah.
I was thinking it was even earlier than that.
Yeah, it might have been.
No, I think it was the 70s.
I think so too.
I think.
Early 70s maybe.
But
But,
back then
you know,
people
the-
were, saying,
Oh, well,
overpopulation, we're going to
Sure.
starve. Nobody's
What's his
really-
name? Malthus. He wrote about it, 1700s maybe. But the population of the world has doubled
Oh, yeah.
in my lifetime.
Oh yeah, I
I
think
just
it's.
found that out.
I think it's gone. I think it's gone much more than double. I think there was like 2 to 3 billion people when I was young, or even less maybe. I don't know. They're just like rabbits.
Yeah.
Something in the food, I guess.
It's a logarithmic. But yeah, that's part of it too. But the whole thing is, the domain of law has extended itself in everyone's mind to where it covers every eventuality. So there's nothing that
right.
cannot become a legal problem.
Right.
Like, do you love your grandmother? Well, there's a law, or there can be one about it. It's just, it's kind of grown like that, to where if the law doesn't exist,
It
it
will
can be
soon.
created if there's a perceived problem, which can be almost anything, since everything is a problem.
Yeah, I think part of that whole situation is that we keep, or somebody anyway, keeps electing these people to make more laws.
Absolutely.
Right.
Why?
Absolutely.
More and more and more laws.
Why not?
Right.
We elect people to
laws, they're just making more.
Right. There's so many laws, and
Well, after a while, you get a lot of laws. Think about it. They can have lawmakers. You said that.
Yeah, they got law interpreters and
what are
enforcers
people in
and-
Congress and all that? They're all lawmakers, aren't they? Now, where are the law leaders?
I know. That's a position that has not been filled yet.
That's right.
And that's
And
one of the things that we should work towards.
so you got all these hundreds of people that are lawmakers making hundreds of laws. So they're busy workers they are, and they're cranking out laws. Well, after a while, maybe you got too many laws. You know, what do you need all those laws for anyway? I mean, really, do we need all these laws?
I think
No,
so.
because some
I think
things
it-
fall outside of that whole domain.
They-
They can't be
and you've got to
decided.
admit,
by-
half of the laws that I can think of are really there to protect the guilty, the people that are
Right.
doing things. You know, they're really they're you got laws and you got loopholes. You know what I'm saying? And
You
these-
mean the toxic sludge barriers?
Exactly, and so if you've got a robber baron and he's just really doing something that anybody could stand back and look and say this should be against the law, so he has them make a law that says it's not against the law. That makes it against the law for someone to sit back and say this should be against the law.
Right.
They'll make a law against that.
And he's got something that is able to, you know, make that happen. I mean, it's like
Oh, yeah.
there's some
Oh,
kind
Lord,
of position.
now.
He owns a politician.
To-
Why can't they make it so that, you know, I mean, when you create a song, you lose the rights after 20 or 30 years or whatever, and then it goes up on the block, gets sold and reissued and whatnot.
Or
Why
maybe-
can't they do that with laws? Certain laws. A batch of laws that come under a certain genre,
Uh-huh.
that they have an expiration date.
I think all laws should have an expiration date.
Yeah.
There is a thing in a way of a function for that. It's called revolution. That you raise your eyebrows. You see-
Well, I was just thought of the revolution will not be televised. And will be
yes, it
television.
will. If I have anything to do with it, it will be televised. And it starts here.
Well,
All right.
I've been telling folks
Is
I've
that
been
controversial or not?
revolting all my life, and apparently
A lot of
When
people
there's-
have, and
making
No, it makes a noise when it touches that.
you know they used to use that word co-opt. You step outside, and the first thing you know, you've been co-opted, and you're on the cover of Life magazine, and you're part of the culture. You know, you're part of the thing that you're trying not.
Right, right. You've been
Mitigate.
sold.
Oh, it is here.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of hidden threats in the culture, I think, today. Just the fact that you have to do certain things to ensure livelihood. That's
Right.
survival. Personally, I think that's what's happening in Washington, D.C. You're talking about Democrats, Republicans. You know, they're all in it together because they could all lose their jobs and
Right.
their pensions.
I think as far as Washington D.C. goes, we should be able to bid like the Olympics and whatnot, where the capital should actually be, from like every 5 years.
It should be rotating.
Just like somebody that works in HR or as a psychiatrist or whatever, they should not be in that position for too long at the same place because you get used to the same people or whatever, and you know, like you need fresh faces, fresh minds, fresh. You know, so every 2 to 5 years, that should be up for bid.
That's a
Man,
great
that would
idea.
certainly
You know?
change things.
And I think we should move
Yeah.
Raleigh out to the west. What do you think?
Step outside for just a minute.
You mean like
Because
I think we should
Raleigh
take
to
Raleigh, the
Asheville?
whole city of Raleigh, bring it out here, so that they can feel, you know, realize that
you know
there's
the
another state inside North Carolina. You know, there's not just 50 counties, there's another 50.
there's another.
We have 50 of them over here. and
Right.
I don't think they know
I'll
that.
be right back.
You mean are you talking about?
Moving the actual city, I'm sure we can make room. We can annex, right?
Which city?
Raleigh,
Raleigh.
Two.
here,
Okay.
we can annex out, right?
Well, it's going that way now. I
Okay,
mean,
so
I
then-
thought it almost is, isn't it?
Well, it's
Did
not.
we notice that?
You know, well, it's out there. I mean, I think Asheville's almost the whole county now. It's getting close.
Now, when it steeps, try some of the Wuyi Mountain, and I find that the two mix well together too. The okay.
well, you know the monumental. It would make it very hard for the monumental to occur if you say if it was floated every 5
You mean
years.
you couldn't build like large buildings that would be
Yeah,
in
and that
the
would
state
be a good
capital?
thing because I think that's part and parcel of the problem.
Yeah, it's
It's
like
huge.
if the
It's like
capital
the
could
age
be a
of the
tent.
Pyramids. I mean, look at New York City or Washington D.C. or any country.
Uh-huh.
You know, the big and the monumental are they signify something.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that signify to me is you can't walk around in them. I mean, it's not public space.
Right.
It's commercial space. Or something.
Well,
Yeah, well, they started doing that stuff for almost religious reasons initially.
Well, I just finished this morning reading this book by Lewis. I'll remember it. It's called Myth of the Machine.
Mm-hmm.
I read it a long time ago, and I just found it by accident and I started reading it. And it's there's a part 2 which is called The Pentagon of Power. It's about the last things he wrote, 66. And the whole thing is about the cultural evolution. Always pulling the rug out of the good things that culture and civilization has because of the power complex. He's saying this is always there, and I can't remember the guy's last name, so I'll have to tell you later.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, his last name isn't as important as maybe the ideas that you're talking about.
The City in History was his big book.
Uh-huh.
He was a polymath. I mean, I don't even know if he went to college. He wrote like the 1915 to the 60s. A lot of books. But this gets them, these last two just sort of put it all together. And it's not a pretty picture.
Well, and he sounds like he's talking about power and kind of like that centralization in some way.
He is. But he's very observant and I mean, it's not dry. It's like just little things, little tiny observations where he'll fit it in to a larger sort of a thing. Very pessimistic.
So, Mr. Mad Scientist Man, this is really good
That's right. I'm ready to rumble.
Uh-oh. How's that work with the blue screen there? Yeah,
Well,
that's what I thought.
I have mixed a can of a new can of paint. The color is called Mad Scientist Blue,
So you're going to paint things right now?
and it's time for this room to get its second coat.
Wow. So we're all going to be...
I'm going to paint the room and have a tea party simultaneously. Anyone is
Wow.
invited to paint who can
It's
be
a-
neat
it's a
if they
painting
wish.
It's
Huh?
a painting party.
It's a paint party and a tea party, and I'll keep the tea coming, and I'll paint, and y'all keep the conversation going.
So
Yeah.
if I have a rat on a string to trade, I can paint, maybe?
Yeah, you got a rat on a string?
No.
Well, then you're sort of talking out of your league here, aren't you?
I was just
You promised a rat on
remembering.
the string, and then it's, well, I don't really have a rat on the string.
Well, I could probably make something reasonable facsimile.
Well,
I was just referencing, Tom Sawyer and his whitewashing of the fence. And
I'm really kind of surprised you don't have a rat on the string.
well,
I've seen the things you keep in your bag of tricks, and there's not a rat on a string in there anywhere.
that's something on the ride over here that I really, really, really wish I would have had, like, access to one of those cell phones that can take pictures.
Yeah.
Because there was just this fabulous array of really sun-crispy roadkill all the way here.
Slide it
And,
something for me if you would.
And some of the expressions on these crunched possums and raccoons and other things.
You mean like
I mean-
what they were saying at the end?
Yeah, I mean, it was just like, they would make such a great series of photographs. They're just like, and all they just like crunched and,
Do they have looks on their faces that like they might have been saying, "What is a greyhound?"
what is it? Yes. What is the meaning of Mack truck? But,
Nice tread.
nice tread. Yes, indeed. It was a fabulous tea party, John, and, I always have such a fabulous time here.
Oh, yeah, hadn't it, man?
Yeah, me too.
I want to hear more about what you do. You say you putter around, but I bet there's something to your puttering that we might be interested in.
Yeah, I mean, I draw, I paint, oils, watercolors.
Did you bring
Teach
any with
myself how to play the piano.
Did
I got
you
a
bring-
lot on my website. I got all sorts of stuff on
you? Did
mine.
you bring any paintings or anything
No.
with you? See, that would have been a great show and tell. To bring
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm framing them all now. I've got found every frame I can find, and I'm filling them.
Uh-huh.
This is my project for this coming week. So then I can do something with it.
Uh-huh.
There's lots of them. I make CDs. I do audio mixing. It's all just fool around stuff. I can,
What kind of CDs do you make?
I just call it electronic music probably, or maybe polkas.
Polkas?
I'm not a
I like
musician.
Electronic.
Maybe
polkas.
polkas.
I'm not a
Oh,
musician.
that would be fabulous.
I like to see what will happen. So
Maybe
that's
polkas.
kind
Do
of-
you do polkas? You got one? The techno polka?
Focus people.
yeah, whatever.
Trance polka.
Yeah.
There might be
The
room for a
polka beat
techno
that
polka.
never stops. I thought about doing that the Church of the Perpetual Beat once, where they'd just have this metronome in there, click, 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 and the whole electronic music would go forever. Different, but the same beat would be. Yeah. So any time of day, night or day, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you could just go to the Church of the Perpetual Beat and throw down.
I believe
Start trancing.
it won't be
Perpetual
long.
what?
It will not be
Perpetual
long.
Beat.
You
Oh, we have that.
you were just a little bit ahead of your time because it's probably happening now. If not, it will soon.
Yeah.
Shake it up.
That's what's on the air right now as we speak.
I guess I have to take off my hat. They're gonna see that I have.
Can I pour it back in? You think?
No,
Is that from the
Stir it
church?
around.
take that up and just take it, it's just a little.
That's what we're talking over. It sounds so weird inside here.
That's our background.
It sounds like I'm halfway.
See that?
Yeah, yeah. You want some more?
Okay.